Yes, if you want to begin recording. Okay. So yeah, the Kenyon Exeter program is a year-long program for English majors at Kenyon. It gives credit toward the English major. You would enroll full-time at the University of Exeter for 2 semesters there. And you take a full course load at Exeter, as well as an additional seminar that would be taught by me that involves co-curricular travel. So thinking about literature in the context of the places where it's written in Southwest England, and hopefully also theater, seeing theatrical productions, although we'll have to see what that looks like in the post-COVID universe. And so, yeah, I would be in residence all year as a kind of advisor and resource to you, in addition to all the resources at Exeter. This is a picture of the Exeter Quay. Exeter is on a river in Southwest England, and so there are lots of kind of restaurants and shops and clubs down by the river. Okay, yeah, so Exeter is down here in the southwest, the lovely southwest of England, in County Devon. Cornwall is over here. It says here, a lively, student-friendly city of 120,000. It is 180 miles from London, about 2 hours on the train. So it's an opportunity to live in kind of more of a college town, more of a bustling college town than Gambier, certainly. I think the next slide shows you a bit of, yeah, the life in Exeter. So there's this lovely medieval cathedral down at the center of town. And then on the cathedral green, which is pictured down here, there are restaurants and shops. Some of my students' favorite things to do were to go to the Plant Cafe, a vegetarian cafe across from the cathedral, and also to go get tea, to go get cream tea at the tea shop that's across from the cathedral. And there's also a number of other shops. Exeter has been continuously inhabited since Roman times. So there's Roman ruins, medieval buildings, Tudor buildings, subsequent buildings. And it was extensively bombed during World War II. So there's also modern development that's come in to reshape downtown. And yeah, it's a beautiful, physically beautiful part of the country near Dartmoor. And the southwest coast, what's called the Jurassic Coast, that has all of these lovely rock formations, wonderful coastal hiking. Okay, the University of Exeter is much bigger than Kenyon, has 18,000 undergraduates, and it's located on a hill above Exeter, maybe about a 20-minute walk into town. So lovely views over the city, very easy access into the city, but still somewhat apart with a nice campus feel. It's one of the top-ranked universities in England. Yeah, and this is an aerial view of the main part of campus, the forum, which is kind of the student center where the library is, and also the theater. Okay, and so in terms of the academic program, Exeter students take 2 courses at a time. They call them modules, not courses, because everything in England has a different word for the same thing. And you are required to take 1 outside of the English department by Kenyon. And so students will often take a film course, which is actually part of the same department, but is a separate program, or they can also pursue other subjects. I had students pursuing language study on the side. So 3 courses in English, and then an additional course outside the department. And then there's also the Kenyon seminar with me, which I'll say a little bit about in a moment. The department is much bigger than Kenyon's department. It has 40 faculty members, which is more than double what we have here at Kenyon, and they specialize in all different kinds of interesting topics. With Gothic fiction, Shakespeare, contemporary African literature, etc. And Kenyon students take the 3rd year modules. So in the UK, the academic program is only 3 years. So the 3rd year is the final year, kind of the equivalent of senior year here. And those will be the courses that generally students elect to take. I have included here the link to the course catalog, because I think it's worth just showing you the rich array of courses that are available. So if you go to the level 3 modules for this year. And you can see kind of, it's quite a long list, you know, somewhat longer than the list of 300 and 400 level courses here at at Kenyon. And there's just a real incredible range of topics. So a course on Thomas Hardy, a course on James Joyce's Ulysses, encountering the other in medieval literature, a course which has been very popular with students in the past is resource fictions. Yeah, resource fictions, oil, water, and conflict in the world system, sort of a post-colonial literature course looking through the lens of fossil fuels and water. And if you are interested in exploring more, you can also click through, and there's really extensive information on each course, essentially a full syllabus there. So if you want to see the kinds of courses that are offered. Spectacular Bodies is another course that many of my students took and really enjoyed, and it's about Shakespeare and performance, and especially avant-garde interpretations of Shakespeare. But a real range of courses that are available. Yes, okay. And then I thought I would say, this is a little bit about the accommodations, and then I'll go on and talk about co-curricular travel. The Kenyon students live on campus with the Exeter students. This slide indicates that they can live in halls with meals provided, but I didn't have any students who elected that option. Nobody did that your year either, Emily? Yeah. Generally, students live in apartment type housing. Is it still Berks Grange is the main hall?
There, we had people in 4 or 5 different areas. Yeah, and if anyone wants to, like, I don't know, they can message me or anyone that was on the trip last year privately, because like they do definitely have like different qualities, and they're in different locations, and it's really actually helpful to know that if that's something that matters to you. And it's hard to interpret from a map, so.
Okay, yeah, this is something we can talk about more. Yes, people.
Yeah, do you want to share where you lived and just like what that?
Yeah, I lived in a, oh my gosh, I can't remember what it's called, but I lived in a building that was like essentially between the Forum, which is the center of campus, and town. Which Berks Grange, which is where some people live in the past, is actually on the other side of the Forum from town. So it's like pretty far. So it's called Whitacombe. It was a little house called Whitacombe House. Yeah.
Okay, was it an apartment style?
Yeah, everyone my year lived in apartment style. Most of them had 6 people. And a lot of them, we had like 3 Kenyon students and 3 Exeter students, or like that would shift by a few people. Some people live with all Exeter students. So it was like everyone had a single, which is great. Everyone has a single, and then you have a common space like your living room and your kitchen, and you cook for yourself on a stipend you get. So the money is provided, but you do have to cook for yourself and fend for yourself, which was an issue for some people, but we all got through it.
It's part of the experience. Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, and I wanted to include this slide because there were some questions about health and wellness from the previous information session. Students are covered by the National Health Service, the much beloved socialized healthcare that is available in the United Kingdom. There is also an on-campus student health center, which I think is similar in function to the Cox Health Center here at Kenyon. And it has medical care as well as counseling that they offer there. It's sort of not too early, or, you know, as soon as you decide to go on the program, you should think about what coordination you might want to do with your doctors here if you have to bring medications over. I had students who elected to just bring their whole year worth of medication with them. Other students had worked with doctors to have things sent to them over the course of the.
Yeah, I would just say when it says having medication shipped, only a doctor can do that. A lot of people assume that that means that their parents can fill the prescription and their parents can ship it to them, and that's not. It would only be a doctor shipping it directly.
Okay, yeah, most of my students just were able to bring the whole year's worth of stuff.
That's definitely the best
with them. But, you know, also they have like excellent medical care in the UK, so we can help you out with any medical issues that arise over the course of the year. Okay, oh yeah, let me say a little bit about the course that I would teach. Generally, the Kenyon Exeter course is split into 2 topics. One is called Plays and Production, and one is called Literature and Landscape. I would probably do the literature and landscape in the fall, and this would be focused on the literary culture of Southwest England. And so each student would study an author who lived in that area and produced work in that area. And then in the spring, we would turn to thinking about plays and how plays specifically are staged. And that would be based on the availability of theater at that point. But historically, the Kenyon Exeter students have gone to Stratford and London, and I have some pictures of the Globe Theatre coming up here. Yeah, this is a map of Southwest England based on the version of the course that Kim McMullen did a few years back, where she had students produce a digital gazetteer of Southwest England, and these are some of the authors that the students studied that are associated with each place. So in Exeter, of course, there's the Exeter Book, the famous Old English compilation of lyric poems. We discovered when I took my students to Exeter Cathedral to see the Exeter Book that the archivists call him Fred. They have a name for this manuscript, and they pull it out. They're like, okay, time to bring Fred out. I guess Fred comes out quite a bit because he's such a famous manuscript. But I also had students go down to St. Ives and Zenner to try to track down D.H. Lawrence's house where he wrote Women in Love. And we went to North Taunton on the trail of Sylvia Plath and Ted Hughes. This is a picture of Sylvia Plath's house when she lived on the edge of Dartmoor and wrote her poetry collection, Ariel, toward the end of her short life. She lived there with Ted Hughes. So I took a very muddy hike with some students around North Taunton, and some dogs adopted us and followed us back into town, and we had to go to the local veterinarian and like look up the dogs and have their owners called. So that was one of our adventures on the trail of authors in England. And I think I also hear, so this is kind of on the trail between St. Ives and Zenner, another trip that students took associated with their research into one of the Cornwall authors, D.H. Lawrence. And this is a picture of the Globe Theatre in London, where you can see Shakespeare plays in a recreated Renaissance theater, an exact replica of how it was in Shakespeare's day. Here's a view from inside the theater. Always a highlight of the trip. Hopefully that is something we'll be able to do, if not in the fall, in the spring. This is another photo from co-curricular travels. This is me in 2014 with the Exeter group in Bath. We are in the cross bath, the 17th century bath, and it gives here a little bit of history where Mary of Modena was cured of infertility in 1687. And so we were able to rent out the bath for an hour and take a dip. And it was November, it was this time of year, so it was kind of chilly out, but the baths are like 93 degrees year round. They get the hot springs that come out of the ground. So we had a nice dip before we headed back to Exeter. This is students getting on the Topsham Turf ferry. So there's a little shuttle across the Exe and a little pub on the other side of the Exe from Topsham, the place next to Exeter where the resident director tends to live. And so you can take a little boat trip. This is my students after stuffing themselves full of sticky toffee pudding at the turf. My students were such big sweet tooth people, like they were so into the British desserts. So that was a highlight wherever we went. So here they are at the turf pub, heading back to the turf ferry. Okay, and then there's other, kinds of sites that we can visit. Lots of ruined abbeys and cathedrals, which I am very into as a medievalist. Here are some students in Dartmoor. I took my students to Hound Tour, where we read part of The Hound of the Baskervilles, and the students climbed up the rock face. Okay, and I think this is my final slide. Just so students had some questions at the last information session about the academic calendar, which is a little bit different than Kenyon's calendar. So it's 11 weeks of instruction, kind of intense, kind of compact. It starts a little bit later than Kenyon, so the first classes are there in the end of September. Students generally arrive for like a 1-week orientation before classes start. And then they wrap up in December, and then there's a short break, and the next term begins in January. One peculiarity of the system is that you will sometimes take exams at the beginning of the next term instead of at the end of the one term. So you might have to come back and do assessments in January for your courses from the fall, or you might have to do assessments at the beginning of April, or sorry, at the end of April there for your courses in the spring. You know, these are details we can talk about later as the process goes on, but just to be aware that it's a little bit of a different calendar than Kenyon's calendar. And when we, the program traditionally, there's a big trip associated with it in either April or May at the very end of the year. And the timing of that is something that, you know, we'll have to determine once we know more about all kinds of things, but including the coronavirus. Okay, so yeah, I think at this point I'll stop a little bit and ask Emily for some answers to questions. And then I will turn it over to Megan after that for some of the details around applying and costs. I was wondering, Emily, if you could tell us about a favorite memory that you have from traveling around Devon or living in Exeter, and then maybe a favorite module that you took at Exeter.
Yeah, so it's really hard because there are obviously lots of cool memories. It's a really great place. I actually went with my flatmates who were lovely British people. Oh, they were perfect roommates, flatmates. And we went to Land's End, which is way out in the corner, like the farthest west you can get on the peninsula, all the way out. It's not just a clothing company, I came to find out. And we took like a hike. We did like a 10-kilometer hike out there or along the coast, and it was just absolutely beautiful. And then like things went wrong in the trip because we didn't have our own cars. Things went wrong. We missed the last bus back, had to like call a cab, and like that was honestly like the best thing that could have happened. In that we like, the cab driver was amazing. He was a hippie who like had spent years of his life picking daffodils, and because that's where they grow daffodils, and he took us this cauliflower field to show us a cauliflower. I don't know, it was great. So I think like that, like the people are always like super friendly, and when things went wrong that it was okay, and it just like added to the adventure. As far as courses, I took a course called Insurgent Narratives, which was about like literature of like revolution in Europe and in the UK. And it was just phenomenal. My professor was just really amazing. And it was, I don't know, it was just like a really like social justice based class. It really expanded my mind on like I don't know, it taught me a lot of European history, and also taught me like how far behind in a lot of these issues like America has tended to be, and really like added to my like worldview of like where we are as a country. And but like alongside that, the college had a huge professor strike while I was there that went on for a couple of months, and that like, so I thought it would be horrible because like we did miss some classes because of the strike, but I got to participate in the picketing with that professor who had taught us about like solidarity and revolution, and we had read like Marx with, and that was like an amazing learning experience outside of the classroom. So that was by far my favorite class and taught me a lot.
Great, thanks. I think maybe because we're recording, should we just continue on to your part, Megan, and then turn the recording off and take questions? Does that make sense?
Sounds good. Okay, so people probably want to know when the application deadline is. I'm guessing that's a big question. In order to apply, you need to meet with either myself or Marin Osick to open up your application for you, and that is in Studio Abroad, no later than February 1st. That's the absolute latest. So you see the link here for kenyon.studioabroad.com. That is our program database, and it is also our kind of like our Moodle for off-campus study. So it has links to information about what's included in the application. It has an advising questionnaire that we would like everyone to fill out that asks you a few basic questions to make sure that we are preparing you for the things that you should be thinking about and for your particular needs or questions or concerns. And it also has links to a couple of videos that you can watch that explain, if you're more of a video person, how to apply, how financial aid works, what to do if you have any challenges along the way. We're very kind of one-on-one advising office. So some of you I've met with already, I know, but if we haven't met yet, I have appointments open on my calendar through Google Meet, which you can find on the CGE's website, or if you email me, it's in my email signature as well. And we also are emailing that out to sophomores like every week now. So you can also just check your email from the CGE. And so yeah, you can schedule an appointment. We can talk through things one-on-one. Everything we're doing right now is basically virtual. So schedule an appointment at a time that's good for you, and we'll talk about any questions or concerns you have. If you're ready to get started on the Exeter application, we'll open it up for you. Or if you want to talk about other options or compare things, I'm happy to do that with you as well. And all of that, again, you go to kenyon.studioabroad.com. On the left, there's a little link that says begin your advising application, and that's kind of the easiest place to start, because that will take you to the questionnaire and all of the resources and recorded videos and everything that we have. So if you feel like you're confused or overwhelmed by any of that, definitely let me know. We're here to help. So that's basically it. Once you get into the application, it's going to have a proposal where you'll need to address your rationale for going abroad. So we ask you to talk about your goals. We really expect everyone to have academic goals for going abroad. We'll also ask you about engagement with the community, because if you don't have any engagement with the community, why would you be going? We think that's an important part of this experience as well. And there's also a recommendation form. So you can ask any professor who's taught you in class to do the recommendation. It could be your advisor, but it could also be another professor that you have a good relationship with who can evaluate your how well suited you are for the Exeter program or for the program you're applying for. And there is a approval form for your major advisor as well. So you do need to declare your major before we can review your application, and you complete that approval form, and your advisor signs off on it saying, yes, this seems like a good fit for you. So if you are, say, a math major, your advisor might not sign off on the Exeter program. It may not be the best fit for you. But, you know, typically if you're an English major, this is a great program. It's highly recommended. So really, we just want to make sure that you've had a conversation with your advisor about your plans. It might be helpful to take certain classes next semester before you go to get a good background or foundation for the program. And so we want to make sure that you and your advisor have those open lines of communication, and this form is kind of a way for us to make sure that that's happening. And after all of that is turned in and submitted, the CGE will review it with our faculty committee. We'll get back to you with an answer by the end of February, and then you'll be able to work with us in the spring on doing the Exeter application. Usually we fill that out together, either in a computer lab or maybe virtually, but we'll try to fill that out together so that you are all set on the Exeter application, and our office will even be there to give you guidance on like how to apply for the visa over the summer and other steps that you need throughout the way. So there will be a number of steps to complete and things to do, but we'll send you instructions and walk you through everything. And another topic to touch on is how much all of this is going to cost and how you're going to pay for it. So the program charges Kenyon tuition, room, and board. We don't charge the health and counseling fee because you don't have access to Kenyon's health and counseling. We also don't charge the student activities fee because you don't have access to Kenyon's student activities. The fee will cover your tuition at the program. It'll cover your housing. We will let you know if there's any housing types that aren't included. Like there are a couple that are extra swanky housing that we exclude, but it includes most of the housing options at Exeter. It's going to include a meal stipend, which you'll receive in British pounds when you get there. So that will allow you to be able to buy food and also not have to convert it from US dollars into British pounds. And then it includes quite a lot of travel and activity with the program as well. The constraints of that might be a little bit different, but whatever is done like with the whole program will be included in the costs. And if you have need-based financial aid, I would suggest that you schedule an appointment with my colleague, Sam Turner. She can put together a budget sheet for you based on your individual financial aid package. And that will kind of show you like what to budget and how much to expect for things to cost, what other things that we might be able to help you out with using your aid package. So since everybody's aid is a little bit different, I recommend you just schedule a meeting with Sam and she can put together something that's personalized to you. And yeah, that's the financial part. Does anybody have any questions about those two things? You can pop them in the chat if you'd like to.
Okay, I'll stop the presentation. At this point. And yeah, I don't know if you want to stop recording.